The information in this lecture is provided for informational purposes only and is not intended to substitute for the advice provided by your doctor or other healthcare professionals. You should not rely upon or follow the program or techniques or use any of the products and services made available by or through the lecture without obtaining the advice of a physician or other healthcare professional. The nutritional and other information in this lecture are not intended to be and do not constitute healthcare or medical advice.
Without further ado, we have Dr. Frank? Okay.
Yep.
I never know if I first name, last name. Sorry, was there anything else?
That's good. Thank you guys.
No. Okay.
And I will let you.
Yeah, we'll do. You do your bio,
Okay,
and
yeah.
we end up introducing. He ends up.
Guys, this is an excellent turnout. I'm very excited to be here with you tonight. As I said, my name is Dr. Frank Michalski. I'm friends with Mary Beth Drozda. That's how I wound up here. She was nice enough to invite me here. I got to know her over the last year or so. You guys are really have some fantastic people that are part of your faith community. So without further ado, let's dive into tonight's topic. So we're going to be talking about CBD oil. Just before we jump into it, has anyone here heard of CBD oil, or do you guys have some familiarity with it? Okay. Do you guys know someone that takes or uses CBD oil, perhaps? Okay, so a number of people do appear to have some, some familiarity with CBD oil. Oh, try to keep going here. Let me get this on. Might have a little malfunction here.
Not really doing so good.
There it goes. Okay. So guys, a little bit about myself. I grew up locally right here in East Amherst, New York. I was right around Clarence, okay? I went to St. Gregory the Great grade school, okay? Very popular parish in the area. We then went to Canisius High School after that. Following high school, I went directly on to study chiropractic, okay? My background is actually chiropractic. I attended Duville College, where I obtained a bachelor's degree in science, okay, in biology. After that, you go on to complete the doctoral portion of the chiropractic program. Following Duville College, I completed most of my rotations at ECMC and UB Neurology, which really provides a lot of my background. My background is really in pain and in trauma. I have a lot of experience dealing with people with pre- and post-surgical spines, okay? We see a lot of pre- and post-surgical knees, a lot of pre- and post-surgical shoulders, car accident patients, patients with autoimmune diseases, okay? A lot of my focus was in those two areas. Following chiropractic school and my rotations through ECMC and UB Neurology, I continued on to study a lot in something called functional medicine and nutrition, okay? You learn a lot about nutrition in chiropractic school, but this, as you guys may know from previous speeches, whether it's chiropractic school or medical school, they don't actually place a huge emphasis on it. After I graduated and I saw the effects that a positive diet can have on a person, the effects they can have on them mentally and physically, I continued to do many studies in that. I've worked locally with Dr. Derek Alessi, who does a lot when it comes to nutrition and weight loss, and working with people who are prone to diabetes. He has a bunch of patients there with autoimmune diseases, all types of conditions that we see. Also there, we carry out exercise rehabilitation. So not only do I promote holistic care, whether it's through chiropractic or exercise, but we also carry out strength training for people in our offices. I'm the co-owner of Northtown Chiropractic and Injury Rehab. My business partner, Dr. Kevin Morielli, was unable to be here tonight. Some of you may recognize his name. His mom was the nurse over at St. Gregory the Great for years, those of you that have any background there. Okay, so, let's see, it sounds like it's loading. We'll give it a minute. So just as a disclaimer, this is small, just like you see on the pharmaceutical ads, right? We don't want to see too much of it. So these statements have not been evaluated by the FDA, right? So when it comes to CBD oil, when it comes to any supplement, none of those things have been evaluated by the FDA. Very few supplements that you find will actually have that evaluation, okay? So we always like to put that disclaimer in there. Now, as I said, my background is chiropractic care, okay? So when it comes to my scope of practice, I'm really focused on musculoskeletal pain and musculoskeletal care. We'll touch on some other disease processes tonight, and we'll touch on some other things that CBD oil seems to benefit, but by no means is that my area of expertise, okay? So it's just something to keep in mind. when it does come to our scope, we are able to talk about food extracts, vitamins, minerals, supplements, and nutritional counseling, which is really where the emphasis is going to be tonight for you guys. Okay, so a quick history lesson. In 1839, there was an Irish physician, this guy, William Brooke, okay? He read a groundbreaking paper on marijuana for medicinal purposes, okay? Now mind you, keep in mind that date, 1839, because we're going to jump around a bit when it comes to different dates and when this research started to appear, okay? His paper presented case studies of patients suffering from rheumatoid diseases, hydrophobia, seizures, and tetanus. In one of his case studies, he was one of the first to look at actually, and we're not talking about Charlotte, those of you that are familiar with CBD oil. He was one of the first ones to look at a little girl who was getting seizures, and he noted in his paper that he saw profound positive effects from the administration of CBD. Okay? Between 1839 and the 1930s specifically, more and more articles were produced in journals describing the benefits of cannabinoids. Believe it or not, if we go back to then, cannabis extracts were often used and sold by pharmaceutical companies in the form of pain creams and pain relievers. So this is not the first time this stuff was around as of recently. In the past, we can look at major pharmaceutical companies and see that they had an interest in CBD, they had an interest in medicinal marijuana, going back all the way to 1839, thanks to this gentleman, William Brooke. Okay, now, in 1937, right around that time in the 1930s, a lot of things really began to change, okay? The climate surrounding marijuana started to become very volatile, and it came to the center of everyone's attention in the media. Now, 1937, political lobbyists colluded to scapegoat and eliminate cannabis and hemp as an industrial crop in the U.S. Now, we'll talk about later on the difference between cannabis and hemp and marijuana. But they're two different things. So in 1937, they wanted to ban the growth of both of those things. These people represented pharmaceutical companies, alcohol and tobacco companies, paper companies, and petroleum companies, believe it or not. This immediately put an end to any research. That was further fueled by this man, William Rudolph Hearst, okay? Most of the marijuana was coming in from Mexico during this time period, okay? You could not get it in the U.S. due to this ban on it growing, okay? Now, also during this time, we were going through the Great Depression, okay? Unfortunately, there was a lot of stigma created between those of Mexican migrants and marijuana usage, okay? They also pitted marijuana against African Americans, against homosexuals, against people who really just weren't Anglo-Saxon and Anglo-white males, unfortunately. So, during this time, the Great Depression, the connection between Mexican people and marijuana was made. This was promoted by most major media outlets, which were run by this guy, William Rudolph Hearst, and Harry Jacob Ainsler. We'll talk about him a little bit more. Now, keep in mind these dates again. So in 1937, everything gets banned, right? Ironically enough, companies are not able to patent a whole plant. So if you guys know anything about the production of pharmaceuticals, a company cannot put a patent on an entire plant. They can patent an extract. In 2003, the U.S. government obtained one of the first patents on CBD specifically, on that extract specifically, to treat certain diseases. So what diseases in this huge study that they made a patent on did they notice it benefited? We'll talk about that a little bit later, but most of these diseases were those involved in oxidation. So cancer, Alzheimer's disease, epilepsy, diabetes, arthritis. We'll revisit this study. I just want you guys to keep in mind that in 1937, everything got banned. In 2003, the government actually got a patent on CBD oil saying, wow, this stuff has a huge benefit. And here we are in 2018, just starting to hear about it again. What happened in between that time? Okay? So, let this load. Anyone who goes back, this was what that Ainsler guy produced, right? It was Reefer Madness. Reefer makes you do horrible things, right? All these bad things that they promoted. And again, a lot of this was actually a very political move to pit people against one another, unfortunately. They were upset with the Mexican migrants. There was obviously a lot of racism back then, and marijuana was the perfect scapegoat to attribute to these people's usage because primarily it was coming in from Mexico at the time. So anyways, you wound up getting movies like this, which eventually turns into now a college parody, right? So it was in 1930. The director of the Federal Bureau of Narcotics came out and made this statement. And I'm going to read this out loud because it's pretty blatant. There are 100,000 total marijuana smokers in the U.S., and most are Negroes, Hispanics, Filipinos, and entertainers. Their satanic music, jazz, and swing result from marijuana usage. This marijuana causes white women to seek sexual relations with Negroes, entertainers, and others. Can you believe that we're reading that today out loud? Imagine if someone came out and said that, right? But this was the perfect point to pivot people against one another. Now, for this man, for Henry Ainsler, this was a very important statement because during the Great Depression, the Federal Bureau of Narcotics did not have money coming in, right? Taxes dropped. People weren't making money. So he had to find a way to keep this alive. Marijuana was the perfect answer to that. And what was even better was he could pit it against people who were, in some cases, unfortunately, there was a lot of racism back then. We know when it goes. Okay, so now we're going to kind of revisit coming up to today. I mentioned a little bit ago that there was that patent that the government looked into. And I said I was going to talk about specifically what it covers. This was in 2003. The use of non-psychoactive cannabinoids, so things that don't create a high, specifically CBD, to treat neurological diseases such as Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and stroke. We're also starting to see a lot with concussions. And diseases caused by oxidative stress, such as heart attacks, Crohn's, diabetes, and arthritis. We'll talk about what oxidative stress is in a little bit. I'll give you an idea, but imagine something that causes the body to rust from the inside out. If you guys have ever seen an apple rot, or ever seen a banana rot, or an avocado, or car rust, that's oxidative stress. That can happen inside your body. So, in other words, the same government that is making it difficult today for patients to access this medicine is clearly aware of the benefit. Due to this bureaucratic red tape, things are moving very, very, very slowly, okay? Now, let's look at the central point of today's conversation. What is cannabis? Unfortunately, even at the higher levels, a lot of people don't really have an understanding of what cannabis is. Cannabis is a flowering plant, okay? There's many different species of this plant. We're going to focus on two primarily, cannabis sativa and cannabis indica, okay? Our conversation is really going to focus around cannabis sativa today. Cannabis indica does tend to be more a marijuana strain, really heavy in THC, those things that cause the psychoactive effects. So cannabis. Cannabis is simply a flowering plant. It's not marijuana, it's not hemp, it's not CBD, it's a cannabis plant, okay? And then, of course, there's different species of that plant. What is cannabis? Now, depending on how we cultivate a plant, depending on how we grow a plant, that's what will determine whether it's marijuana or hemp. So we have one central plant, cannabis. Depending on how that plant is cultivated, we can grow a marijuana plant from it, or we can grow a hemp seed plant from it. So the question becomes, what defines something as a marijuana plant as compared to a hemp seed plant? That's now what we have to ask ourselves, and that's what a lot of the legality today is focused around. Okay, hemp, or industrial hemp, is typically found in the northeastern hemisphere. It's a variety of the cannabis sativa plant species that is grown specifically for industrial uses of its derived products. We've been using hemp for a really long time. We've seen it in clothing, we've seen it in ropes, we've seen it in canvas, we've seen it in paper, we've seen it in textiles. I was reading something the other day where they were talking about using it in tampons to help prevent toxic shock syndrome due to its antibacterial activity, okay? We're seeing all different types of things now with hemp. Now, when we look at hemp, hemp has skinny leaves that are mostly concentrated at the top of the plant. It can grow up to 20 feet tall, and it's high in cedar oil content. Marijuana, it has broad leaves that grow in a brush. If any of you live way out in Clarence, I can't remember the road that's off of, but I was biking one day, I'm looking, I was like, geez, that looks like a marijuana field. And I was like, oh, it's not. No, that's hemp. Because a lot of places now are starting to get involved in the growth of hemp. It looks like cannabis, but that height, that those big leaves at the top are what differentiates the two. So now, we're going to talk about the defining factor between marijuana and hemp. Okay? So we have a cannabis plant. That plant can be cultivated into either a marijuana plant or a hemp seed plant, depending on how it's grown. Here's the defining factor. Now, a hemp seed plant is going to contain primarily CBD, cannabidiol. That's known as a phytocannabinoid, okay? A marijuana plant is going to contain THC, tetrahydrocannabidiol, okay? THC and CBD, when present together, are what defines a plant as a marijuana plant. So a marijuana plant has THC, a hemp seed plant only has CBD, okay? Now, if we were to look at the two differences, what's the difference between THC and CBD? When we talk about marijuana, what we have specifically is THC creates a high, okay? THC creates the euphoric effect. THC is the primary ingredient that we're thinking of when we're thinking of marijuana, not found in a hemp seed plant, because hemp just has CBD. When we look at a cannabis plant, a marijuana plant, there's a bunch of different cannabinoids. These are only 2 of 100 cannabinoids found in the plant, okay? These are the ones, though, that all the research is focused around, because these are the ones that tend to have the most profound effects. So, let's move on here. Does that make sense, the difference? Marijuana, THC, hemp, no THC? Okay, guys. So, marijuana is 5% to 35% THC when we look at the top of the plant, okay, when we look at the leaves. Low CBD. Medicinal hemp or industrial hemp is 16% CBD and less than 0.3% THC. So in order for it to be defined legally as a hemp seed plant, it has to have less than 0.3% THC. If it has over that, or if its CBD is less than that 16%, you have a marijuana plant. That's the only difference between these two things, okay? And that's important when it comes to the legality of all of this. Marijuana versus hemp. So, THC. So we're talking about marijuana. Not legal in all 50 states, right? Colorado, California, I'm not sure of all of them at this point, but there's a few now that have legalized marijuana by the state level for recreational use and for medicinal purposes. In New York State, we do use it. The Dent Clinic is now the people that distribute medical marijuana, which contains THC. You need a doctor referral. You need to go through a state registry. There is a waiting period, right? They have to go through all those background checks. You have to go to a dispensary. They're getting a bit better now, but when the dispensaries first opened, they were kind of odd places. Like you would go there, there'd be a security guard. Federally, you can't put any of the money in the bank in marijuana because it's illegal, so they have to keep all this cash on hand. It was kind of a sketchy looking thing. It causes a high, and this will cause you to fail a drug test. If you work a job where you're concerned about drug testing, THC is typically the cannabinoid that they're looking for in urine and in hair, right? It will stay in your hair a lot longer than it will stay in your urine. So that's THC. That's when we're looking at marijuana. Now, if we were to look at hemp here, let's see. Hemp. You don't need a dispensary. You don't need a doctor visit, although I would recommend speaking to your doctor, and we'll talk about why. There's no waiting period, and it's widely available. So when it comes to hemp, you guys, this is sold as a supplement. So today, it's sold like fish oil. You can walk into Feel-Right and buy it. You can go on Amazon and buy it. Just like other supplements, though, that comes with a problem, right? There's no regulating body on this stuff. So you could have Joe's hemp seed oil that Joe made in his basement, okay? Just like you could have Joe's fish oil that he made with his hemp seed oil. Maybe he mixed up a few of the pills when he was making it, right? That's the problem with a lot of these things when it comes to supplements. But these are some of the advantages to just using hemp, a CBD-based product. So, what is it that makes cannabis such a good medicine? Why is it there's so much focus around cannabis? And guys, for all intents and purposes going forward, I'm not talking about things containing THC. I'm just talking about CBD products, CBD oil, CBD products. There are two main types of cannabinoids, those found naturally in your body and those found in plants. So CBD, THC, those are cannabinoids found in plants. They're known as phytocannabinoids. We see these in other supplements. A lot of people will take phytosterols for heart health, things like that, okay? And then we have endocannabinoids. Endo, meaning coming from within, okay? These are things already found in the body. Your body, and this is very important, already has cannabinoids present. ANA, 2AG, okay? Your body already makes cannabinoids. And they float around the system that we're going to talk about, the endocannabinoid system. Now, phytocannabinoids are found in plants, specifically cannabis plants. CBD and THC being the most abundant ones of the 100 cannabinoids that are found in a cannabis plant. Now, why is cannabis good medicine? The endocannabinoid system is a system in the human body consisting of cannabinoids and cannabinoid receptors. So when you take something, when you have a hormone released in your body, in order for that something to work, it needs to bind to a receptor. Think of a lock and key, okay? Right? You can't open a door without a key if it's locked. Think of cannabinoids, CBD, THC, ANA, 2AG. Those things are going to open up that door and let things happen. The endocannabinoid system is involved with regulating appetite, sleep, pain, mood, memory, our immune system, and much more. Its primary function is to promote homeostasis. So when you hear people talk about cannabis, you may hear them say, it's meant to balance out the body. It's just meant to bring things back to level, back to normal. The whole idea, that's that word, homeostasis. We'll talk about how it does that. So when CBD or THC enters your body, it activates this system, this invisible system that's present in your body, this endocannabinoid system, by attaching to the cannabinoid receptors. So keep in mind, guys, this is nothing new to your body. Your body already has cannabinoids present. Now, why is this important? The complexity of the endocannabinoid system with other body and brain systems involves interaction of the cannabinoids with endorphins, with hormones, cytokines, growth factors, pleasure centers in your brain, immune cells, connective tissues, bone metabolism. This stuff, there's a lot of research out there on osteoporosis for this. Nerve cell inflammation, cell regeneration, and programmed cell death. This nerve cell inflammation, anyone who knows anyone with MS, that's a disease, multiple sclerosis, that attacks the nerves. Dent is specifically using cannabis for MS, okay? Because of studies like this and the role of this system in your body. It's responsible for rebalancing the most essential systems to control pain, mood, inflammation, energy, wellness, and illness. It shifts roles for maintaining a balance between physical buildup and physical breakdown. The whole idea of bringing your body back to normal, okay? Back to that normal state. So, we have two primary cannabis receptors in our body, CB1 and CB2. Cannabinoids, CBD and THC, are going to bind to these receptors. They're all over your body. They're in your brain, your lungs, your vascular system, your liver, your colon, your immune system, your bones, your muscles, your reproductive organs, your pancreas, and your spleen. And guys, we're really just starting to learn about this system and how it works. Today, this may change, but as of, let's say, the last 2 years, there's absolutely no training on this in school. There's nothing about this system when you go to medical school, okay? So a lot of people talk to me and they'll be like, well, I'm going to ask, and I encourage you to, but they say, I'm going to ask my physician about cannabis. And their physician's response is usually, I don't know. I don't know anything about that. I can't help you. So just keep that in mind. It's not necessarily their fault. The training wasn't there. The research wasn't there because of the ban that the government had on this stuff as a Schedule I drug. When going way back, when they labeled it as a Schedule I drug, that prevents you from doing research on it. That was kind of the whole play there. So we'll talk a little bit more about these receptors. CB1 receptors activated in the brain result in pain relief, mood stabilization, well-being, and pleasure. So why is this important? When we talk about CBD oil, For the use in anxiety and depression, this can be huge. If you simple Google search CBD oil for addiction, CBD oil for smoking cessation, you're going to see a lot of this research revolving around this statement and these CB1 receptors. It causes a release of serotonin, right? So someone smokes because they want that dopamine hit, they want that serotonin hit. Well, if you can take CBD oil and reproduce that hit, then you don't need to necessarily rely on that nicotine or that alcohol or that addiction, right? More interestingly, when CB2 receptors in the brain are turned on by cannabinoids, by CBD, an anti-inflammatory response occurs. Okay, this results in pain relief. Chronic brain inflammation is involved in Alzheimer's, PTSD, MS, Parkinson's suppression, and autoimmune disorders. Guys, this is what that patent that the government holds was studying, and they concluded, yes, this stuff is very, very effective. That's what they said. You can look up the patent, okay? That's the direct action on the CB2 receptors. Now, even though they're in the brain, they're in all your peripheral tissues too, okay? So people have neuropathies, retinopathies, all those things. Other effects of CBD, we talked about how it stimulates serotonin. Now, this part gets a little sciencey, but a lot of people ask, and this is the only reason why I mention it, and we'll touch on this more when it comes to dosing. Less is more when it comes to CBD oil, okay? And a lot of times people find that they need to take less and less and less, and then they can start to stagger it over a few months, maybe every other day, every few days. This is the reason why your body has an enzyme in it called FAAH. This enzyme breaks down the cannabinoids already present in your body. So this is no good. If you have this in high quantities, it's breaking down cannabinoids already present in your body, okay? It's eating them up. When they looked at studies of people who had addiction problems, when people who had chronic pain, fibromyalgias, they started to say, wait, we see less serotonin in these people, and we see higher levels of this bad enzyme. When they started dosing them with CBD oil, oral cannabinoids, they noticed that this enzyme started to drop. It started to decrease. So CBD seemed to block the action of this enzyme. Now, why is that important? Because if that enzyme isn't floating around in our bodies, your natural levels of cannabinoids are going to start to increase. And this is one of the hypotheses around why people may not need to take as much of it, or why they find less and less becomes more effective over time. Because if CBD oil destroys this enzyme in your body or blocks it, this FAAH can't go around and start chewing up all your body's already occurring natural cannabinoids, hence bringing things back to homeostasis. They did a neat study on this with nicotine and alcoholism, and they found that those people had higher levels of this enzyme. And that's kind of what they said here. I said that genetic or pharmacological inactivation of FAAH produces analgesic, so pain relief, anti-inflammatory, and antidepressant phenotypes without showing the undesirable side effects of direct cannabinoid interruption. This may be a promising therapeutic target. So if we target this, we can get rid of a lot of those bad things, is basically what that said. And that was actually taken right out of a scholarly article. If you guys type that in online, Google, you'll pull it right up right there. What has CBD oil been shown to help with? Well, my hope was in showing you guys that this cannabinoid system is literally present.
What was the site you said?
Oh, just if you type into Google, CBD oil and FAAH. That's it, just in the Google taskbar. CBD oil and FAAH. And you'll pull up all the studies on it there. They'll pop up in the first few things when you click on them. Yeah. FAAH. Yep. So, okay. What is CBD oil shown to help with? Now, my hope is showing you guys that cannabinoid system is present everywhere in your body, starts to paint a picture of how, when you're reading all these things, how does it help with cancer and seizures and diabetes and joint pain? How does it help with everything? That was the reason why. So, anti-inflammatory, pain reliever, stress, anxiety, sleep, bone growth, antibacterial, muscle spasms, seizures, arthritis, autoimmune disorders, autism, addiction, ADHD, MS, acne, sleep disorders, menopause, We're using it a lot in pet care, not myself specifically, but there's 2 holistic vets in the area. They're starting to get into this quite a bit. I'll tell you too, I have a lot of patients who just wind up giving it to their pets, mostly for arthritis. This is becoming a huge, huge market for CBD oil with pets. And diabetes, okay? What do all these things have in common? Inflammation. Okay, we're not going to read this whole thing, but this was the patent that the government held. And you know, maybe I'll go through this a little slow because it's pretty breathtaking to hear out loud. Cannabinoids have been found to have antioxidant properties, okay? This newfound property makes cannabinoids useful in the treatment and prophylaxis of a wide variety of oxidation-associated disease, such as ischemias, so strokes, TIAs, age-related inflammatory and autoimmune diseases. The cannabinoids are found to have particular application as neuroprotectants, so something that's going to protect your brain, okay? For example, in eliminating neurological damage following stroke, trauma, or the treatment of neurodegenerative diseases such as Alzheimer's, HIV, dementia, Parkinson's. Non-psychoactive cannabinoids, that's CBD, non-psychoactive, non-THC cannabinoids, such as CBD, are particularly advantageous to use because they avoid toxicity. Now remember, this is the government saying this. They label it as a Schedule I drug. To be a Schedule I drug, it has to have toxicity and overdose potential because they avoid toxicity that is encountered with psychoactive cannabinoids at high doses. Useful in the method of the present intervention, okay? So this is basically the patent that the government owns on CBD extract. Legally, due to their own laws, they can't buy a patent on the whole plant. They can only get it on that extract. Charlotte, this was kind of a really big thing. If you guys find this is a special edition of Time Magazine, Marijuana Goes Mainstream, or Main Street, okay? This whole thing kind of sums up what we're talking about. They'll have a discussion in there on this girl named Charlotte. So Charlotte, she was having about 300 seizures a week with not much luck from medical intervention. Her parents wanted to try cannabis, but they didn't want her to get high. They didn't want that THC effect, right? They then developed a farm-grade, high CBD, low THC strain of cannabis. This being medicinal hemp, okay? Nowadays, that's known as Charlotte's Web hemp, okay? It worked. She went down to about 10 seizures a week without the high. And here's just, obviously, you can see the differences in Charlotte. Like I said, they have a big write-up on her. This was a big deal when this happened with her because people kind of started to say, wait a second, maybe this isn't exactly the bad thing that we once thought it was. Someone's giving it to their daughter that is having all these seizures, and she's all of a sudden doing significantly better. So, is it legal? Well, this is a little more complicated than just yes, okay? Cannabis with less than 0.3% THC is considered hemp. Hemp is a supplement identified under the 2014 Farm Bill. That bill was passed by President Obama, and that bill said if you have a cannabis plant that has 0.3% or less THC, it's legal. It's a hemp seed plant. It's not a marijuana plant. That bill was just passed again and approved not too long ago under the new administration. So you do see, yes, it is legal. With that being said, there still is a lot of back and forth depending on who you ask. There was recently a case that went to the Ninth Circuit Court, and they determined that they said, no, it's still a Schedule I drug, even just CBD. But then they say, well, you can legally kind of sell it as a supplement. They kind of are expecting this to go to the Supreme Court sometime, okay? And you can actually read about that in here. So it's a little bit shaky. Yeah, you can buy it at supplement stores, you can buy it online, you can buy it almost anywhere because of that Farm Bill. It's kind of like a loophole in the legality of it. Important things when it comes to CBD oil, okay? Not all of it, as I mentioned earlier, is the same. So now you are going to see, if you search CBD oil online, tons of manufacturers, absolutely tons of different products with all CBD oil with turmeric, CBD oil with fish oil, CBD oil with coconut oil, CBD oil with essential oils, okay? There's some things you want to look for when you're looking at products. You want it to be full spectrum, okay? Full spectrum means they use the whole plant, and we'll kind of go into that. Those cannabinoids, they work together, all 100 of them, including THC. Granted, yes, we have to take the THC out in order to get it legally on the shelves in this case. But you want a full spectrum, not an isolate, okay? Whole plant extraction, so they're using the stem, the stalk, and the leaf, okay? The seed, too, is usually used as a carrier oil, okay? Hemp oil, if it's just hemp seed oil, that's not CBD oil. Hemp seed oil is just omega fatty acids from hemp seeds. You won't have CBD in there. CBD comes from the stalk, the stem, the leaf. I've seen things pitched as hemp seed oil, but that's not going to have CBD. You don't get that out of the seeds. You get carrier oils out of the seeds. You want it to be organically grown, domestically grown and made. Obviously, when it comes to these things, we like to outsource everything, right? Those of you who follow a lot with pharmaceuticals, a lot of our pharmaceuticals, fentanyl specifically, production is primarily held in China, okay? Right now, we're on rocky grounds with China. So I don't know if that's a great idea to be taking things coming from over there. You can get CBD produced oils from China, okay? Things that are grown quite foreign from us. Third-party testing, I would say this is one of the most important things to look for in a product. I say this whether it's a fish oil, a CBD oil, a red yeast, rice, an echinacea, third-party testing is great. And then company transparency. You want to be able to contact them, right? Ideally, it's not Joe in his basement every time you call. Hello? What? CBD? Oh. I gotta go. So just keep that in mind. Full spectrum CBD, it includes all 100 cannabinoids minus THC. There's all these other flavonoids, terpenes, other molecules that are in a hemp plant that they're finding have medicinal purposes. You want the full spectrum. Entourage effect, that's what they refer to when all these cannabinoids are working together, okay? They don't work great individually of one another, is what they found. Okay, we'll let this go on here. So, again, the government has a patent on the isolate version. They can't patent an entire plant. So CBD is isolated from the plant, and it does not contain any of the other cannabinoids. So if you see a product that's an isolate, really, in this case, I would recommend you to stay away from it. It looks like this fine white powder. It's not synthetic, it's natural. But a lot of people, when they're studying CBD, are saying, look, you're probably better off with the whole plant than an isolate or an extract specifically, an isolate of just CBD. Whole plant extraction, we've gone over this. It's from the leaves, the flowers, the stalks. Cannabinoids do not come from the hemp seeds. When you look at a product, you may see on there, you're going to see it says, okay, so this is hemp oil, 40 milligrams, okay? So what that is, and they give you the exact concentrations in there of CBD that you're getting. It's a bit less. I want to say it's like closer to 25 milligrams. You usually have a carrier oil in these things. So they make it in the presence of hemp oil, so the fatty acids help with the absorption of it, okay? Vitamin D, if anyone takes vitamin D, you should take that with a fatty meal, right? Because that vitamin D is absorbed better in the presence of fat. CBD oil, fish oil, all the same idea, okay? You might see a CBD oil with coconut oil in it. They're using that as the carrier oil. Domestically grown, third-party tested, we covered that. Dosage. This is very important, and this is probably one of the trickiest parts. Less is more. In many cases when it comes to CBD oil, we are all uniquely different when it comes to our endocannabinoid system. They're finding in the research, no two people are the same, okay? So less is more. Now the interesting thing about CBD and THC is it has a biphasic effect. Now, I don't know if you can all go back to college or more recently, less recently, who knows? You got one person who smokes marijuana and they're like, oh, this is great, I'm so relaxed. You got another person who has a panic attack. Why does that happen? That's based on their endocannabinoid system, okay? And this biphasic effect. There's a target, and that target tends to be somewhere in the middle of a low dose and a high dose. If we want to seek an anti-inflammatory response, if we're at too low of a dose, we won't get anything. If we're at too high of a dose, it's probably going to work against us. It won't make us hurt more, but it's not going to help us. You need that right in the middle of the road. So we have people, I've worked with, let's just say larger male, right, in his mid-50s, and he'll say his dosage is 3 drops underneath the tongue, and that seems to do the trick for him. If we're talking about, let's say, an anxiety or a chronic pain. Then I have some people who are taking a full dropper a day. Maybe this is a petite female. It's really tricky to get the dosage, and they're still working on research on this. There's some guidelines you can go by. There's some generalities. But I tell people, if you've tried it, if again it's not working, one, maybe you don't need it. Maybe your endocannabinoid system is fine, okay? Or two, you might not have that sweet spot that they call it when it comes to dosage, okay? Biphasic effect. Too weak doesn't work. Too strong doesn't work. More is not better. Somewhere in the middle, okay? Dosage, we'll go back to that. You'll see the bottles. I'll just kind of mention this now. When you look into buying cannabis, you'll see 1,000 milligram bottle, 500 milligrams, 750, 1,500. It's just giving you more milligrams per dropper depending on the strength that you're getting. So if you're getting 1,000 milligram bottle, there's 40 milligrams per dropper. If you're getting a 750 milligram bottle, there's 30 milligrams per dropper. Just something to look out for. They're all the same thing, just different strengths, okay, depending on that dropper, okay? So, medication interaction. This is going to be important for a lot of people, okay? Now, I'll say generally speaking, this is regarded as pretty safe, but there's something really important when it comes to CBD, THC, medical marijuana, any of this stuff, okay? This is metabolized by your liver. Cytochrome P450, like 65% or more of medications out there are metabolized by this same enzyme, which means that this has an effect on 65% or more medications that people are taking, okay? We'll give a list. How does it affect those medications? Typically, it causes an increase in the presence of the medications in the blood, right? So if someone's on a blood thinner, this may be the scariest one, like a warfarin, and they have to go for testing to check the levels of it every month, those levels staying in their blood might increase if they're on CBD. Now, why does this become tricky? You want to take it, you're on medications, but your doctor doesn't know how to manage it. We try and help people out with this. We try and get them in the right directions. We try and communicate with their primaries to help them say, okay, look, this person's going to be taking this supplement. Can we get them this blood work? Can we get them this testing to monitor these other medications that they may be on? And guess what? My cytochrome P450 in my liver is going to metabolize a drug different than someone else. So there's no set standard to this, okay? It's not alone, and it's effects with this. Grapefruit, I don't know what that word is. St. John's wort, golden seal, okay? They all have similar effects on CYP450, okay? This is important for a lot of you guys. I say talk to your doctor about this. Mention it, especially if you're on a lot of medications. These are just some of the medications that are metabolized by that same enzyme, which a lot of people have taken one or multiple of these before, okay? Interestingly enough, though, they use a lot of these things with, like, we're seeing a lot of research behind CBD and helping people come off of opioids, okay? We're seeing a lot of people come off of benzodiazepines. We're seeing a lot of people come off of the antidepressants. Again, if you're trying to accomplish something like that, work with your physician. It's not smart just to cut some of this stuff cold turkey, right? You can really wind up with some serious health problems in that event, okay? Beta blockers, which a lot of people are on, PPIs, right, blood pressure issues. So just keep that in mind. Even anti-inflammatories over the counter, okay? It can increase the level of those present in your blood. Yeah?
What antibiotics?
So I don't know specifically. That's a great question. I want to say, what's the one that they usually do for UTIs for females? Cipro. Yeah, that's one that I know I saw, but I'm not sure off the top of my head. Yeah, you'd have to get a more complete list of that. Which we actually have a website that provides that list with many medications. So really, that's just kind of a caution thing. Now, in experience, I see a lot of people take it who are on a lot of medications. You don't see many reported side effects, okay? But it could happen. Everyone's different. Guys, just a quick thing about this. There is a lot of this in skincare. I believe it was in Time Magazine too, and this was a while back. They looked at the industry from a value standpoint, and they said, wow, there's a lot of money in skincare when it comes to CBD oil. This stuff works. When they look at studies indicating CBD, it has significant anti-aging benefits. It's an anti-inflammatory, so we have anti-aging properties, right? It's an antioxidant, wrinkles, inflammation, right? Makes sense. It reduces damage caused by free radicals, such as pollution, that can dull our skin's natural glow. It is also considered by many to be an anti-inflammatory, which is ideal to fight unwanted puffiness, okay? So the company that we work with, they have a whole skincare line. I don't necessarily promote it, I don't talk about it in my offices. I see people who go online and they purchase the CBD oil, and then they'll just buy a bunch of the skincare products, okay? They seem to really like them, but I don't personally have anything to do with the skincare stuff for the time being. So just a little thing on there. It is a large market for skincare. The last thing I wanted to say, and this is really kind of important, is if you have pain, if you're looking to take it for a reason, you should consult with your physician, especially if it's something that you haven't had before, and this is why. And I'm going to give a more dramatic example. Let's say someone has back pain, but let's say it's more serious than they usually experience, and they're like, you know what, I have back pain, I'm going to take CBD oil for it. They take it, they keep taking it, and then one day they have an aortic aneurysm. And it's like, oh dear, that back pain wasn't from a mechanical injury, it was from an aneurysm or something more serious, right? If someone has a history of cancer, they're used to being sore, right? We have to worry about metastasis, right? You want to arrive upon a proper diagnosis. And I really say that even when I give a talk on pain management, on back pain, I say, you know, look, you guys, you're paying money, you're paying co-pays to go see your physicians, okay? You should want a diagnosis. Saying, oh, you have pain is not an answer. That's great. Chronic pain. From what? Like, there's a lot of things that cause pain. We really want to get down to the nitty-gritty of that. Pain is the most common reason I see people take this. Some of the neat things I see when we see blood work, if anyone knows anything with like rheumatoid arthritis, fibromyalgia patients, they can have a really high value called C-reactive protein. It means inflammation is high all over the body. So what am I saying? If I hurt my back shoveling, CBD oil cream, pain cream, that might help, okay? Taking it orally in that instance, it might not do a whole lot. That's mechanical back pain, okay? We're talking about more pain control for those systemic effects. Now, sure, if someone's in a car accident and they hurt their lumbar spine, their cervical spine, their knee, their neck, they now have a chronic widespread pain, and that could play a role. But if we're just talking like, oh, I have elbow pain, I think I'm going to take out oral CBD oil, that's probably not going to help, right? If my job is like scooping ice cream all day long and I have elbow pain, taking that orally probably won't do a lot for that, okay? So I tell people you kind of want to, it's expensive, right? This stuff can run about $100 a month, okay? So it's worth making sure that you're a candidate for it, all right? There's pain creams. This stuff works great on knees, elbows, backs. That's probably one of the most popular things that we use. The last thing I was going to say, or that I was going to show you guys, I'll pull them out, was the third-party testing. I work with this company, okay? What does that mean? That means I have interest in them financially. I like this company, though. That's why I work with them. It's not so much for the $5 that I get for using it with people, okay? It's more for the benefit of it. I stumbled across them when I was looking up. Long story short, do people here drink caffeine? Does anyone drink coffee, caffeine? Do people need caffeine to get through the day? Okay. So after school and after I graduated, I needed a lot of caffeine, okay? I was really heavy on the caffeine. And it came to a point where it was too much. I actually got fairly sick from it. They said I kind of burnt out my nervous system a little bit. I actually had to go to dent. They told me, they were like, listen, you developed an allergy from it. You can't drink caffeine anymore. Wow. Okay, so I'm looking online, and I'm like, and Dr. Michalski told me, he's like, it's going to be hard for you to stop drinking caffeine. I was like, I think so. So that was one of the hardest things I had to give up, right? Caffeine's addicting, okay? So I was looking online, and I was like, what could help kind of curb the edge? What could give me some of that oomph back that I would have from that cup of coffee, from that caffeine kick? And CBD oil kind of kept popping up over and over when it came more to like addiction, and in this case, it was caffeine addiction. So it was really fascinating. After I started taking it for a few weeks, I was like, wow, I'm sleeping better. I'm waking up. I'm feeling refreshed. I don't feel that energy kick that you get, but you just feel good throughout the day. So that was how I stumbled across it. It was honestly kind of by coincidence. Before that, I had heard at a conference some people talking about it, chiropractors, for pain management for the creams for their athletes, okay? There was a lot of popularity with this stuff in athletes. But that's how I wound up with this company. That's why I use them. They do the third-party testing, organically grown. You can call the company, you can ask them where their labs are, where they get it manufactured. They'll give you all the contact information.
What company is it?
Yeah, so it's CBD BioCare is the name of the company. I have cards and stuff that I'll give you guys with information on it. Okay, that is kind of everything that I wanted to cover. That's all. Now I'll leave it open to you guys for questions. First one up there. Yeah.
Dr. Frank, I just want to understand if you could explain to me about the endocannabinoids. It seems like some of my friends, and myself included, is it possible that we were very low on our own endocannabinoids because we need so much of it? Like, we're starting off, when you say like 5 drops, my girlfriends were like, that didn't do anything for me, MB. Now, a dropper full, they're seeing results. So I realized that what you said, that eventually as their own endocannabinoids fill, their usage or the amount they take the dosage will go down. But does that mean our endocannabinoids were low?
Yeah, and they're
Okay.
starting, absolutely. So that's kind of the idea. When they looked at people who had like anxieties or addictions was really the big study where they looked at it. They found that those people had naturally low endocannabinoids
Yeah.
and really, really high levels of FAAH. So when those people took it, they were like, whoa, this is making a difference, but they needed more and more, right? So if you have really high levels of FAAH, that enzyme that chews up your body's own cannabinoids, you're going to need more CBD, presumably, than someone else who has, let's say, relatively low levels of FAAH in their body. That's kind of what the studies looked at. Why does this person have these problems and why does this person not? And they kind of focused around that enzyme. So that would make sense, yeah. The idea is that's already low, and they're finding, look, what you eat plays a role. How you exercise plays a role. Your body weight plays a role. Those of you guys that have ever heard of adrenal fatigue, they're tying it into that, saying that plays a role. So there's a lot of moving parts as to why someone could have already low cannabinoids. But yeah, absolutely. Does that answer it?
Yes,
Okay.
excellent.
Good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Is there a test to tell you where your level is?
So that's a great question. There is. I'm sure there is. I don't know of that test yet. But yes, they can test. I'm sure you're going to see a bunch of labs coming out with tests that are going to be promoted over the next several years that check for CBD levels, FAAH levels. I don't know of any personally. I haven't seen it. But like any drug, you can trace it in the body, in the blood. So I'm sure that there's ways to do that. And when I was looking at the studies on the alcoholics and decreasing that level of FAAH, that was by blood that they were studying that. So there are ways to look. Not that I'm familiar with ordering, or not that I know of anyone really right now doing
Thank
that.
you.
Yeah.
Frank, how would you know if you're using it for something like an inflammation?
Yeah.
Not chronic pain, an inflammation. How would you know if you're using enough or not? Because that's not something you can see.
That's a tough part. So that would be pretty much, well, it depends on what the inflammation is. So like if we're talking inflammation, we could be talking pain, we could be talking Alzheimer's disease, we could be talking any number of things, right? Is it like brain fog? Is it what form of inflammation, I guess? Diabetes is inflammation. So I always look at it like this. I say, let's get something specific that you're taking it for. So if it's pain relief, we're going to want to see less pain. If it's for diabetes, we're hopefully going to want to see lower levels of blood sugar, which would imply less inflammation, a lower HbA1c. If it's in a rheumatoid arthritis patient, in their blood work, we can look at C-reactive protein. And we can say, okay, is that level going down since we started taking it?
What about cholesterol? Because that's
Yeah.
inflammation.
So yeah, there is benefits for this when it comes to heart health, and I would make it as simple as that. I would say, look, we're going to use this for X amount of time, and let's see if the cholesterol changed. And then I would probably go more specific into that and try and find a dosage amount. You can find general guidelines for like cholesterol, for seizure disorders, for these things. They do have like
They do have it.
guidelines. Yeah, and I would say, okay, let's reference those guidelines and see what most of the studies that said this benefits cholesterol, what range did they put them in? That's what I would look at for
Because
that.
you wouldn't know if you use too much, like you know how you said when you showed your graph. You said not enough doesn't work and too much doesn't work. So
Yeah, I think that graph probably has more to do with, and that's kind of an interesting thought process. If you got just the right amount, would that affect cholesterol as compared to taking too much or too little?
Right.
I want to say that graph more functions around the more tangible stuff. So like pain that you can feel readily, anxiety, depression, addiction, like just very subjective, tangible things as compared to something that's very objective, like a specific value. Not certain on that, but that'd be, yeah, that's fine. Question?
What form of CBD oil should you take for osteoporosis and also if you have a low thyroid?
Yeah, so that's kind of specific. So I don't know much about it for thyroid. Now, when you look at, so it would be, the answer would be any form. So CBD oil is CBD oil. If you're buying some, unless they're really screwing you over on the marketing, if it says CBD oil, you would like to trust that that's CBD oil. It's all going to be, generally speaking, the same type of form. Now, where they grew the hemp, what strains of hemp they used, that's going to play a difference. But when they studied osteoporosis, they just looked at CBD oil. They didn't go down to, it was this strain, it was this, it was that. They just said, a high-grade CBD oil. Let's say like a pharmaceutical-grade CBD oil, okay? But yeah, there's not, are you talking like oral or like candy or something?
I'm actually taking it through dent.
Yep.
For inflammation, pain,
Yep.
and for sleep. But in the meantime, I broke a rib really easily, and I know I have osteoporosis. And I'm also taking natural thyroid for thyroid, but they were out of it for a long time.
Yeah, so that's a tough call. So when it comes to the different forms of CBD oil, I'll start with that. You'll see CBD gummies, okay? I saw CBD water in Wegmans the other day. I saw, you got the oil drops. I can say the ones, and I'm not, and this is just me, research on it's good, so this is just my thing. I'm not a huge fan of inhaling it just because we don't know 100% the effects on the lungs, but the absorption is good, okay? Sublingually, under the tongue, would be your next best bet. Gummies, I don't know. Yeah, I probably wouldn't go crazy on the gummies and some of those. And now, this is important too. Especially if we're talking with something with THC, the half-life is different in each of those. So if I take CBD oil in this form and underneath the tongue, it's about 1 to 3 days it's going to float around, okay? And for it to reach its maximum effects, that, especially if we're talking THC, is going to be relatively quick. If you're taking something orally, it takes a few more hours to sink in, and it tends to stay a lot longer in your body. So, again, that would be one of those things to say we'd really have to sit down and look at the studies on osteoporosis. What were the parameters? What were the dosages? Was it sublingual? I want to say it was mostly sublingual, though, from what I recall when I was looking at the osteoporosis studies on that in CBD. Now, osteoporosis, though, that goes back to when you were just talking about regular marijuana usage, too. That was when they first started to see benefits for that for bone growth. So, but I would stick with, I usually promote the sublingual. That's usually what I say.
That's what I'm taking, but how long do you think somebody taking it before they would see an effect? Because I started in June, and then in February I broke my rib really easy.
The only way to know would be a bone density test. That'd be it. And really, you'd expect a safe bet would say at least, I'd say 6 months. But again, are you male, female, age range? Are they weight training? Are they eating a certain type of way? That's all going to play a huge impact on that. That's going to have a huge impact on that. So there's there's a lot of moving, and that's why I say like to sit down and talk with someone about it is really where that would be beneficial, because there's so many. CBD oil won't be like the fix-all. It's a part, right? It's a part of changing a bunch of other stuff. It's a great boost, but if I'm giving someone CBD oil to help them with their bone density, and they're smoking, they're not lifting any weights, they're eating like crap, how much can I really expect to happen, right? So that's kind of how I put it. Question, Vic.
What's the difference between medical marijuana and CBD oil, or like the stuff you get from PharmaCannabis, that local?
So like from a pharmacy that you need a script for,
yeah,
that has THC in it.
Okay.
That has THC. CBD, no THC. That usually has THC.
But is there different THC, like THC does not always give you a high?
So it depends on the person. So let's just say for all intents and purposes, if it has THC, it's probably going to give most people a high. Some people aren't really affected by THC. Now the dosages is going to be different. So if we have a medical marijuana plant from cannabis sativa, that high is going to be very, very different from a strain of cannabis indica. So again, a lot of moving parts in that question. Now you could have a dosage, and Dent will kind of mess around with this. We want to give this person a stronger THC or a THC that they're barely going to use. Let's say it almost like a physiological dosage. Yeah, they might not, if they're putting 1% THC, yeah, you might not get a high off of that. If you're bumping 16, 17%, 9%, you're probably going to get that high. And again, that high could vary person to person. It could vary depending on the strain of cannabis plant that they use to make that marijuana. But that's a difference. Yeah, you need a script. It has THC. Yeah. We'll keep working our way over. Yeah.
Where is the best place to research for the guidelines for dosage?
So that's a really good question. So there are no set standard guidelines. They don't exist. I tell people I don't know if I have it with me. I'll send Carol an email. Do you guys do emails and stuff like that to everyone? I'll send her an email with a link that kind of can show you some places where you can gather information on that.
Dr. Frank, your website, if you go on CBD
It's
Media,
actually true.
it shows dosing, but it's 15 minutes long, but it brought so much awareness for me.
That's a great point. Yeah.
Right on,
Thank
if
you
he
very
gives you
much.
his
Yeah.
card, you're gonna go
Oh,
right on
okay.
that website. It taught me so much about dosing,
Great.
about how really individual it is because of what Dr. Frank taught us
That's-
tonight. Our own endocannabinoids are gonna play a role for every different person. So I had to play with that. I have to tell you the truth. My mental acuity has changed so much since I've been taking this. But then when I took it late at night one night, where my husband likes it late at night, my body.
Captain America in my dreams is awesome.
It's crazy.
Yeah,
isn't it? It's awesome.
He's having the best, like, he's saving lives in the streets. He's doing all sorts of heroic things.
But I don't know if that's the right thing to do. I mean, I found during the day, like Mayor said, that I find if I have it in the morning, I'm sharper, I'm happier. I seem
Yeah.
happier.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
happy anyway, but it's like, and I'm more, I don't know, sharp.
Yes.
Mentally.
Yes.
And I've noticed that my joint pain is less.
Absolutely.
So that's all I have to say.
That's huge.
And it's been, I don't know, 3 weeks we've been doing it.
That's.
I can't wait to take it. It's like,
It really.
We
Oh, I
notice
see.
a
I
difference,
see.
but at night I did notice when I took it late,
Yeah.
personally, and the reason I'm sharing this is when I took it late at night, I was making this active list in my head that was so precise. I saw check marks. I was like, I couldn't believe my thought process, and then all of a sudden I was like, how pretty my comforter is. It's so pretty. I really have a beautiful, this is such a beautiful ceiling. Because the builder made this really interesting, like, artistic ceiling that I never appreciated until, see, I took it too late. My brain was, for me, at night it wasn't working.
Yeah, and
Now, daytime, love it. Lunchtime, love it. But if I take it after 6 o'clock, I become a little bit too active, but I'm very productive. Getting a lot done at the house. Looks so much better. My house is so much cleaner.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sign me up.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Two questions.
Yeah.
Seed. So the oil is derived from the seed?
The oil is derived from the
plant.
the whole plant, the stem, stalks, and the leaves. You could eat like hemp
Is the
seeds.
seed just to grow more? I mean,
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that would be a great way to look at it. Yeah, and I'm not like an expert on plants or growing plants, so I'll just throw that in there. But you can't. The seed itself does not contain the oil. It has hemp seed oil, but the CBD oil is derived from the leaves, the stalk, and the stem. Okay, that's.
the question was
Go
about
ahead.
what reactive protein, what is it called? The test for inflammation.
Oh, C-reactive protein.
Is
Yeah,
that
that's
pretty accurate?
so. It's a very so that's kind of a blood work question. So that's a general test. So C-reactive protein is a protein that looks at inflammation in your body. Now, they can kind of lock down on it and say, if we see a patient has high cholesterol, high triglycerides, and they're, kind of looking like they're at risk for a cardiac issue, we can look at CRP and say, oh, this might be a cardiac problem we have on our hands. But now other people, we see it in cancers, we see it in autoimmune diseases, we see it in just some people happen to have higher CRP than other people. It says that there's inflammation, but we don't know specifically why you have
If you
inflammation.
have this test and your doctor says you're fine, you don't.
Yeah, normally we would see, so this would be so your doctor would know you best, right? So sometimes we'll see it, so let me kind of an example on the CRP. You have this test, and let's say you do have rheumatoid arthritis. There's a good idea that autoimmune disease, that arthritis, is why you have a high C-reactive protein. Now, if I just took a perfectly healthy individual, they had no complaints, no problems, and I ran a CRP on them just for the heck of it to test it, and they came back high, I'd ask some questions, but at the end of the day, I probably wouldn't jump the gun to conclude anything, right? So it's just like a general kind of thing to check for overall inflammation. You generally speaking want to see it below a 1, but now I've seen it higher in younger females on birth control, right? Like there's different things that can affect CRP. I mean, we see it drop dramatically when people change their diets. I mean, the food you eat can play a huge role in your C-reactive protein. Maybe more so than anything. So, question?
I'm curious, for people that have no benefit or they don't gain any benefits from CBD oil, I'm curious if you could talk about THCA and also CBDA, the acid.
So, the answer is no, because I don't know a ton about it. So, I'm more specific just on the CBD. I don't know, it's just not something that I'm sure on. Now, I will kind of say this, if people, and this might not be exactly what you want, but nonetheless, when people take CBD oil specifically, and let's say we really mess around with the dosing, and it's really not getting them any benefit, I would be inclined to say, listen, this probably doesn't have to do with your endocannabinoid system, right? And that goes the same if someone feels great, and they're like, oh yeah, I'm gonna take this, I'm like, I don't know if it's working. Well, why in the first place? You know what I mean? So that's kind of my caveat. You should always have something that you're trying to track if you're taking it. But I don't know much about those other two.
So going on with that, what you just said, is if CBD oil doesn't work for this person, but THC does, does that mean that the dosage is incorrect?
So the dosage could be incorrect, and now you're entering into the world of is a combination product best for this person, where you use that other cannabinoid, and the research would tell you yes. A lot of people do find that they do well with a low ratio of THC and CBD. Just because I guess due to my scope and stuff, I don't do a lot, but yeah, absolutely. Just because a CBD thing didn't work for someone doesn't mean that they couldn't work with a physician and maybe find a THC CBD combination that might have the effect. We didn't talk a lot about THC, aside from mentioning they get too high. There's a lot of research out there on THC in specific dosages for pain control, anti-inflammation, anti-anxiety. It's a little more volatile than CBD, right? Because it's that could flip the switch from helping to decrease anxiety to throwing someone into a full-blown hospital panic attack type thing. So, but there could be benefit for that person, yes. Questions?
I noticed you didn't have migraine up on your list. CBD.
So, migraine is a thing.
Do you need the THC for the migraine?
So generally speaking, when you look at the literature, THC is involved with migraine. Yeah, THC is involved. Now, the only thing I'm saying, this is kind of where it goes that full circle thing, you look at what's the person eating, how are they sleeping. Let's say their sleep is horrible, and let's say that's a factor in their migraine. If the CBD oil can help with their sleep, would it be so wrong to say we might see an improvement in the migraine? That's kind of how I look at it. Or if we have a cervical spine problem, right, and a chronic pain problem back there, it wouldn't be wrong to say, well, if we can get the CBD to help your pain, maybe a secondary effect will be the migraine. But yeah, to have it directly on migraines, it's usually looking at THC. Lots of questions. Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
Well, I do body work, and I'm just wondering if I use CBD oil on my clients that have inflammation or areas that are very painful. how long can I keep using this on my hands? Am I just gonna have the most wonderful pain-free hands in the world?
What's the absorption through the skin?
So, I
How
mean,
long can you use it
how
on your
many,
hands? All
you know,
that stuff.
day after day, hour after hour,
So I use it a lot in my own practice on my hands.
Yeah,
Okay.
right. I just have to interrupt
Yeah.
for a second, I'm sorry, because everyone seems to be very much enjoying it and intermingling. So my question would be, if some people, because I can see people do.
Oh yeah, people that want to go can go.
But how, if they were interested in purchasing it, do you have a card or?
We'll supply all that.
Grab on
Yeah.
it, but if they're walking out right now.
Oh, is the leaving? Yeah. We'll set these up over here. Yeah. Here, guys. And then I'll answer that for you.
Babysitter schedules and everything else.
Yeah, here you guys go. Oh, guys, I'll mention this too. If you have pain, there's a $10 off our new patient exam in our chiropractic offices, where we can talk about this further. Anyways, to answer that. So, I don't know about the absorption through the hands, particularly. Okay, it's low though, because someone asked me that once before, and I called the company, so I talked to them. They have a physician assistant there, and I was asking him what's the literature on transdermal absorption, and he said it's extremely low because the amount that you see of CBD oil in the cream. Now I'm talking about using the cream,
Yes.
not the oil itself, the oil concentrate itself.
is the oil in the mouth?
So the
It's
oil
oral.
typically is oral, but you can use it topically too. And I do know there are some massage therapists in the area where they do like CBD massage, CBD rub. I don't know of any negative effects from that yet, but I think we're really new to that area, so I don't think that information would even be there at this point. I use the cream with a lot of patients. I just do a rub like on their knee or on their back,
Specifically.
rinse off my hands after. The way I look at it is, if you guys are familiar with a Voltaren, that's like a Voltaren, that's like a pain relief cream. That has significant side effects. You have to get blood work done typically. Okay, if you're not getting it through prescription here, you have to go to Canada and get it. It's going to be a lot safer than some of those things. That's all I can say about it right now. But
Okay.
yeah, good
So
question.
you
Great
do
question.
use it.
Yeah, I use the cream all the time. I use it on my elbows when I golf.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean,
And with
for your
patients,
clients,
yeah. Oh, yeah. It's on my hands majority of the day. Yeah, it is. Yeah.
You seem quite stimulated.
Oh yeah, no, we've been going for a long time. Yeah, no, it works.
It might work.
Has anybody heard of a store called the Kokoro Way? It's in Clarence, Kokoro.
So there's the CBD store that opened
Yeah,
up, right?
the CDC. And there's one on Cole, PSA one.
So you're gonna see a bunch of stores popping up with CBD oil. You're gonna see a bunch of places with this. It goes back to the same question of, as long as you guys could ask them, where are you getting the product from? What's your quality? Where is it being grown? Are they growing it in their backyard, or are they getting it from a farm that's regulated, right? So that would be my only thing, but you're gonna see a bunch of stores pop up over the next few years. Question on the back.
So I think along the same lines, I think for this group especially, like extraction method is, I think, something that people maybe, we kind of like skimmed over it, but I think that's really important because there's safe extraction methods or methods that would be, I think, at least for the people who follow like Weston A price, it would be more along the lines of our diet.
So yeah, so when it comes to the extraction, I can tell you, on the website, they give a detailed explanation of how they do the extraction. It's by CO2 extraction from what I understand. Again, I know that they do it that way, so they kind of have two things that they do when they're doing the extraction. They want to keep the plant fully intact, so they don't want to destroy any of the cannabinoids, okay? And like I said, I don't know a ton at this point about that method, but it's a CO2-based extraction method. They do it in a manner as to not destroy the fatty acid properties of the carrier oil. I know that that's very important. If you do it in too high a heat or something like that, it can ruin these essential fats in there. You see the same thing with fish oil, okay? So I do know that they do put a lot into that, but the details of that extraction method, I don't want to give you information that I can't. I can tell you though, the website, they go into an in-depth talk on that extraction method. They also do something neat too when they do that extraction. So these products legally to be out there, they can contain 0.3% THC and still be legal. They take all the THC out. And I had handouts and I can actually place them up there. They have 0 THC, and then they do the third-party testing to show that they kept all the CBD intact when they did it. And you'll actually see some bottles on the testing where you have even a little bit more. I think they said there's like a 5% variation in the amount, but you'll see where it's a very pure product when you look at the third-party testing. Great question about the extraction though. Question? Yeah.
CBD oil and addiction.
Yeah.
Can you tell me more? Well, I guess my question is, you were talking about that you stopped drinking coffee because
Yeah.
of caffeine and all that. But if you're taking it, will it allow you to be less apt to what?
So the answer is yes, and this was pretty crazy. They did a study with that with nicotine, and again, Google CBD oil and nicotine, okay? One of the first things that pops up should be a peer-reviewed article from that NCBI or that one website that publishes like all the peer-reviewed stuff. Anyways, when they looked at the studies, they found that up to, I think it was 4 months after stopping taking the CBD oil, people still reported significantly less cravings, significantly less issues when it came to addiction. So it's not just while you're taking it, and that goes back to that hypothesis of it's eliminating that one enzyme that tends to be high. So now your body's naturally making more cannabinoids. So the addiction, in theory, should be decreasing because now you have more serotonin, more things like that. So yeah, I mean, giving up the caffeine, I didn't really have a plan on that. That was tough. Like that was, it's my next area of research, caffeine addiction. That's, I think a lot of people have it. I think it's a big problem.
And is asthma?
So asthma, if it was related to an immune issue, which asthma tends to be an autoimmune thing, right? Or they say it's an immune system reaction. I don't see why you wouldn't be able to find information on that. Good question?
Yes. In what way is it effective for menopause? Does it
Oh.
relate to?
So okay, your endocannabinoid system plays a huge role in your hormone and your hormone receptors. Okay. Now, when it comes to female health, I don't know what happened in school, but I just seem to kind of miss that part. Okay, I really focused on the pain control. I can tell you this, the biggest two things I've heard, and I didn't prescribe it for this reason for anyone, I didn't recommend it for this reason, but from females, they said the hot flashes and the sleep disturbances I suppose you see during menopause, that's been the biggest feedback I've had on that, for the hot flashes and the sleep. All I have. But it has a direct effect on your hormones though, because your endocannabinoid system is closely tied into those neurotransmitters that signal your hormones for estrogen, progesterone, testosterone. Similarly, when it comes to hormone production, you see that with the osteoporosis, right? If someone can be extremely estrogen dominant, they're more prone to osteoporosis, I believe is the mechanism. When they look at CBD oil, they'll notice like, hey, we're starting to see a decrease in this outrageously high hormone, starting to see bone density go up. It also has a direct effect on the bones. So again, more than one pathway.
And are you going to sell it tonight?
So no, so I don't have any wholesale. Yeah, that's the thing. I just go through my website right now. Yeah, eventually we'll have some wholesale though. We will. Question back there.
If my clients are in the process of going through drug court, is the CBD oil okay to take?
Great question. So this is what I say. So the first guy who used it from runs a huge company in the area. And he owns the company, and he was like, I'm going to get drug tested. And he was like, I swear to God, if I fail my drug test, he was like, you're going to be in trouble. And I was like, I understand, okay? So I told him, I was like, look, I have the third-party testing reports. Here's what the company showed me. Here's what they provided me with. There is absolutely no THC in this. I was like, if your company is testing for CBD, which I have not heard of nor seen, you will obviously test positive. If they are doing the standard drug test of urine and hair, for this product specifically, this guy passed, and their third-party testing reports that they put out show that there is no THC. So I tell people now, the only caveat is there's been some research to say that your body can convert CBD to THC in low amounts, okay? I don't know if in one person that might be enough to trigger a drug test. And then I'd also just be wary of what people are doing. And I love working with people, I trust people, but someone can be like, oh, I popped up positive for marijuana, can you tell them? It's like, well, I don't know what you did when you left it, you know what I mean? So like, that's my only other concern when it comes to that. So I always say there is a possibility, but as far as I'm concerned, I've drug tested myself on this product. I can write scripts for myself. That came back negative in urine. The gentleman that had hair testing came back negative, and I based that all on the third-party reports, though, that they send out. Now, may they get a batch where they wind up with a little, it's hard to guarantee. I wouldn't make that guarantee. I'd proceed with caution. Back to Mary Beth.
Dr. Frank, on, you know, the product that I tried, I started off 2 years ago at Feel Right, and I appreciate their awareness, bringing it into the community, but it didn't do anything for me. So yours was specifically so much more, I want to say, potent. So, is it because theirs doesn't say full spectrum, do you think?
So I think that has to do with the full spectrum, and someone else asked about the extraction method.
Okay.
I think both of those things would play a huge role in
okay,
that.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
If I can kind of piggyback, I have a friend who's taking it for MS, and she was at one, I was asking about the medical marijuana.
Yeah.
She was getting it from one pharmacy. I know of at least two, I don't know.
Yeah, I know of two in the area that.
She was getting it from one pharmacy, and her effective, I mean, she like took it and started walking. She had been not really walking.
Yeah.
She had a cane. She couldn't walk long distances. Started taking it, was doing great, but then she started to kind of regress a little bit. She changed pharmacies, and she is like back up again. So I don't know.
So that could play into two things. I'd say like one was her body kind of was something happening with that system where it was stabilizing, and maybe she needed a little less, maybe a little more. Or now when we're talking usually with MS patients, there's typically THC present in it in some quantity, so they might have hit her with a different ratio of THC or a different strain of THC. There's many strains when it comes to medical marijuana. And if you're like slaying like, oh, you got, you know, purple haze and kush and Afghan kush and this and that, there's a million different plants out there. People respond differently to them, but I'd say either one of those cases, perhaps they gave her a different ratio, or perhaps her body just needed to utilize a different amount in order to find that sweet spot again, because that spot changes. I can tell you from personal use, from using it for a while, it changed. I used to take a full dropper, then a half dropper, then a third in the morning and the evening. Now it's like a third every other day. So it's like, it changes. When I gained weight, it changed. When I lost weight, it changed. So there's something to it, yeah.
Oh, was this for weight loss?
So the answer to that, I wouldn't say it's for anything specific at all. I would say, you know, stick to what the government patent has. It's an anti-inflammatory. Now, they do have research that visceral fat is the most damaging fat that we can have. Fat around the belly, right? That white fat. It's the most inflammatory. They do find that people use CBD oil does seem to have some degree of impact on that fat. And the belief is that you actually, your body starts to develop cannabinoid receptors on that fat itself because of the inflammation response in it. So there are a lot of literature out there on it for both appetite control, so hence weight loss, and that goes along the addiction, if someone has a food addiction. And you also see literature where they're actually starting to use it with anorexia, which is the complete opposite thing. And that goes along the lines of, how can one person use it for insomnia and another person use it for, you know, fatigue, right? How can one person use it for ADHD and another person for fatigue? Because our bodies respond so differently. And perhaps that person's cannabinoids are just in a level where they're hitting ADHD and this other person is, we don't know 100. The research is still so young on that. But that'd be general thought process. Yeah.
I'm curious, can you build up a tolerance to CBD oil and it becomes less effective over time?
So that's kind of what I would say. I would say the answer would be yes. I think most people do build the tolerance, but ideally when that happens, they're feeling better. They're maintaining their benefits. So the idea would be is that you've been taking it, your body's natural cannabinoids are starting to be produced in higher levels, and now you're taking it, but you're not realizing the same effect. Maybe you're just not getting that same effect. So you stop, but you're balanced out at that point. You've reached homeostasis would be the idea. Now back to that question back there about the MS patient. Could have she built up a tolerance? Maybe went a period of time without it, changed strands, and then it switched. Yeah, but I would say you could absolutely, with anything, I think you can develop a tolerance. So there's that risk.
So what kind of effect does it have for cancer patients?
I don't talk about cancer. That's one thing that I just don't touch. There's a ton of literature out there if you type it in now. And it goes along the same lines as inflammation. You can see it in breast cancer. You can see it. There was some pretty big studies with brain tumors that they were doing, and you can see a lot of research out there. Not research, I shouldn't even say, but testimonials with pets and animals with cancer. But yeah, cancer is one thing I just don't. Yeah, I just don't go there. But you can find information out, and I bet oncologists are going to be some of the most resourceful people when it comes to talking to that. I think it's going to be hard for them to get around acknowledging that. So hopefully we'll see a lot. Way in the back.
How do you realize, or when do you know when your body has reached that level of homeostasis where you're starting to wean your dosages back off? What are the signs that you've hit that level and you can now start going every other day or every 2 days or increase your dose amount?
Completely. So I'd say if you were tracking something in blood work, that would be one thing to look at, right? If you're tracking C-reactive protein, maybe you say, okay, so let's take again, someone with joint pain. They have joint pain. They start taking CBD oil, and there's no guarantee on this. It might not work for some people, but that's it. They have joint pain, they start taking it, they feel better, okay? And they notice, okay, I'm taking this, I'm feeling better. Some time goes on, and they say, okay, what happens if I just skip a dose? Do they still feel better? Yes, lasted a day. Skip another dose, lasted 2 days. That's really the only way. They say it's an intuitive dosage, and you'll read about that when it comes to CBD oil. Your body has a way of telling you what's good and what's bad. It just kind of does. Like for me, it wasn't anything particular. I noticed like, oh, my sleep wasn't as great as it's been. And then looking at things, it was like, oh, take less work. So you kind of, if you use it for a little bit, you kind of start to learn how to play with it within your own body. That's the best thing I could say. Or if you were looking at blood work, then you could have something. You're saying, my cholesterol's down, let's cut back, let's run blood work again in a few months. How does it look? That would be the best way to go about that.
I have a friend who has alopecia, which is an autoimmune disease. Would CBD oil or ointment help her?
The guess would be yes, but I don't know of any specific literature out there on that, on alopecia.
Okay.
But Maribeth?
Sorry, Dr. Frank.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm being a nuisance. I talked to the co-owner a couple days ago because I have so many friends that are concerned about their pets.
Yeah.
They're putting their pets in the forefront, taking care of their pets more so than themselves. Well, Stacy Pitts, the co-owner, said to me, she said, Maribeth, it's the same product, we just put a different label on it.
It's the same product.
So if you're
That's
gonna
a great
buy a
point.
bottle for yourself, don't think you have to buy another bottle for your pet. Save yourself the money and share the bottle.
Yeah, it's a good caveat in there. Yeah. If people are, I don't know anything about dosing in pets. Yes.
We're on your website, we can't find where we would purchase it.
Yeah, so it's on the cards there. The best thing you guys can do is go from the cards. But it will say like, so there's different ways to get to it. But it should just say shop by CBD oil. What's the website look like?
Maybe because it's a mobile.
Oh, you're on my Northtown website. No, there's it's cbdbiocare.com/my name.
Okay.
That's why. That's the confusion there.
Okay.
That's
Is
my
that
card.
on your card?
That's on the cards up there. Yeah, I have the cards up there with the website for you guys. Website, coupon code that ties it to my name. Right? That's how I can kind of track who's doing what. But yeah, it's on the card up there. You'll find it with that one. Nice website though that you're on there. Yeah, it's a good one. Alright guys, we'll take a few more and then yeah.
So is it safe to generally say that somebody who's got a poor lifestyle, eating a lot of processed food, the wrong kinds of fats, not getting exercise, all that, probably has lower endocannabinoid levels in their body?
Definitely.
And if they improve their lifestyle, it should improve.
Should help.
And also that if you take omega-3, if you balance your omega levels, it also helps.
Absolutely, and that goes to that like whole body approach, right? That kind of goes to what I was saying. Like it's tough if we have someone who is kind of constantly working against themselves with their lifestyle. How much can you really expect? And you're going to have a bunch of systems thrown off in that individual, right? We have inflammatory things from food. We have lack of exercise. That doesn't help with the immune system. That doesn't help with bone growth. So yeah, and that's really what I try and emphasize is a lot of people, they'll read about this and they'll pick up the time and they're like, oh my God, this is going to cure everything. And they take it and they're like, oh, that did a bit, but not what I wanted. And I usually look at that person and I say, look, this may have more of a benefit, but but you gotta create an environment that's gonna promote that benefit, right? You have to foster that environment. Great question. It's,
Would the dosage, beginning dosage be on that website that?
yes, they are. There's a whole section on that.
For pets, for humans?
Do they talk about pets on that?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
They actually show, this dog having a seizure on it. Her name's Apple.
Yeah.
And, the difference after they, actually dose her and then how she stops with the tremors and.
With the CBD?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can you just use the dropper or something?
Oh, with the dog? Yeah, if your dog will let you, if not, my dog won't let me, so I put it in a capsule and then put a square around it. And then,
Yeah,
she takes it
creative
that
things
way.
out there, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did we have one more question in the back there? You guys were a pleasure. Yes, if you have any questions, reach out, okay?
The information in this lecture is provided for informational purposes only and is not intended to substitute for the advice provided by your doctor or other healthcare professionals. You should not rely upon or follow the program or techniques or use any of the products and services made available by or through the lecture without obtaining the advice of a physician or other healthcare professional. The nutritional and other information in this lecture are not intended to be and do not constitute healthcare or medical advice.